Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Acing Your Next Nursing Interview workshop for the College of Nursing and Health Sciences. So just a quick reminder before we get started, this workshop is being recorded, and if at any time you have any questions, if you're tuning in live, feel free to use the raise hand feature. You can put your questions in the chat, whatever you feel comfortable with. For my folks that might be watching the recording or the replay, you are welcome to email me your questions and we can connect that way. So my name is Logan Todd. I am the Career and Alumni Services Manager here at United States University. I am your contact for anything career related. Of course, today we're going to talk about interviewing, but I can help you with so many other things as you get closer to graduation and you start looking for jobs. You're going through the salary negotiation process, anything related to career. You can come and see me and I'm happy to answer your questions and help you as needed. I do offer one-on-one appointments via Calendly through Monday through Friday. You can book those through the link here. I'll make sure that in my follow-up email to you, you have the link as well. So when we think about interviewing, I like to think about it in stages. So when we approach this process, I have it broken down into before, during, and after the interview. So we're going to, of course, start with before. So hopefully at this point, you've submitted your application or applications and you've gotten some feedback or some invitations to interview. What's next? So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to do as much research as possible. Sometimes there might not be a lot of time, right? They might give you a very short deadline or maybe the interview is scheduled for the next day. If that's the case, we're going to use as much time as we have and we're going to try to research and learn as much as possible. I want you to get familiar with who works there, who you'd be working under, the different projects or the initiatives that the company has going on, or the small practice, right? Like maybe they're in a very beginning stage, they just recently opened. What help do they need? What other support? Maybe you might be able to help out with some other things other than being a nurse practitioner, right? Maybe they need help with marketing, right? Maybe those types of things you can bring up in the interview as well. So getting familiar with who you're actually going to be working with can be very helpful in that conversation. I want you to also practice. Again, it's tough if we don't have a lot of time, but if you go into this process winging it, I promise they will notice. I want you to put as much time and effort into this so that you feel prepared and confident. We're also going to show up early. So whether that is virtual or in person, I want you to be there early and on time. If we're on time, usually we're a little bit late. So I want you to show up early and come prepared with that resume in hand or your portfolio ready to show them. You can also have some type of QR code to show them as well, or you can send it over via email before the interview. So that way they already have it ready to go. The night before, we're going to get a good night's sleep. We're going to eat a very good breakfast or meal beforehand so that we are ready. We feel good and we ate well as well. We're going to pick out our outfit the night before, or I always like to say if you have more time, I want you to pick out your outfit before that day, because that way we can try it on, make sure it still fits. We might not have had an interview in a while or at all, so it's good to try on this outfit first to make sure you feel comfortable and confident in it. And that way, if you don't feel comfortable and confident, we have time to go get something new. So those are my tips before the interview. Now, when we look at the different types of interviews that you may encounter, there is so many different types nowadays. It's not just a one-on-one, you with one other person. There's a new type of interview called a one-way interview. What this means is exactly as it says, it's a one-way, meaning you are the only one in the interview and you're recording yourself on your computer and submitting answers to questions. They might have you do some type of pre-screening tool or assessment. As I said, you're going to be self-recording your answers. You're not even going to be actually talking to a real person. The computer will ask you the questions, you'll respond and record your answers. Then you might move on to another stage of the interview where you do get to talk to a real person. Phone screenings are still very common in the process. So that would just be a brief phone call with a recruiter, hiring manager, just a couple questions to make sure that you really meet those initial qualifications that they have set. Then hopefully we get to either a virtual interview or in-person interview with real people. So this could be virtual over Zoom, Teams, Google Meet, Skype, any of the virtual platforms. In person is of course at the practice most of the time. These can be multiple rounds. They can be with different people in the organization. You might even have something like a group or panel interview, right, where you're interviewing with multiple people. That's very common as well. The last one, which is not always the case in healthcare careers, but a work sample or presentation interview. Maybe if you're going into a leadership position, this might be common, where you're being asked to provide samples or give a presentation based on a certain prompt or question that they might ask. So I just want you to be aware that if you see a one-way interview pop up or a phone screening, that is what these are. These are very common interview types that you might see in your industry. So those digital interviews are kind of tough, right? Because it's hard to express our personality or really show them who we are when we just are in a little box. I think the pandemic has really helped us get more familiar with interacting this way, but it does sometimes hurt us in this process because we aren't feeding off of other people's energy. We aren't kind of reading the room. We don't have that ability. So some things that we can do, though, are practice on how we can do this. So you might see some digital interview tools like HireVue, TalView, Yobes. These are all virtual one-way interviewing platforms where you're going to record yourself. And I like this picture here that you see on the screen because this really does describe what those platforms are doing. They are analyzing everything that they see on that screen. So facial features, eye contact, what is going on in the background of your screen, right? Do you have a child or an animal running behind you, right? Those distractions, those movements in your camera frame. It's also analyzing your speech, the different content and clarity of your words, the types of words you're using. Are you using a lot of filler words, such as like, but, right? Those types of words that tend to fill in the gaps for us. The different style and tone of our voice as well. So it is really analyzing all of this to send to the hiring manager, whoever is on the other side. They might also ask you to complete those virtual assessments, which are kind of like little quizzes or online tests, right, that do your personality, emotional intelligence ratings. So if you see something, again, HireVue, again, HackerRank, Test Gorilla, Test Dome, these are all very popular virtual assessment tools that you might be asked to complete. Now, just know for smaller practices or smaller organizations, it costs a lot of money for these tools, so you might not see them if you're looking for something smaller scale, but anything bigger scale, say Kaiser, for example, or a large healthcare network, they might be using some things like this to screen applicants. So some tips to help you get through this process are have an idea of the types of questions that you might be asked so that when you have to record yourself, you feel prepared to answer within the time limit. You can also have a cheat sheet of notes, right? They're not going to see what's in front of you. They're just seeing from here to here. So if you need to have a little notebook on the side with notes on it, or even have your resume printed out, you can do that. That's kind of the luxury of being a virtual interview, so that they can't see really what's in front of you, but they can see what's behind you. Something else is making eye contact with your camera lens. I know it's a little silly to be talking about that, but it does make a big difference in the long run because it does look like you're making eye contact with that person when we make eye contact with our camera. So for me, I always have a little sticker next to my camera on my laptop. That way it reminds me to keep looking at the camera. Just know that this is still newer, right? Interacting this way is still new. So if you feel like you want to practice and you want to go through some interviews together, we can certainly do that. You can schedule a mock interview anytime with me. These are also very personalized. So you tell me what types of jobs you're looking for. If you're looking for a particular specialty in healthcare, I can pull specific questions for that specialty. We can work on building answers together and help you feel more confident throughout that process. So if you're interested in that, just know that is available to you if you want support. Something else is using AI. There's tons of platforms out there that have AI built in for interview preparation specifically. I like to use ChatGPT because it's very easy to understand, easy to put in prompts. This is a free resource to you, to anyone in the world, but it is great for generating interview questions and helping you prepare sample responses. So you can see from the images here, I asked ChatGPT to provide me with a list of questions for a nurse practitioner job interview. And I know it only shows 5, but actually gave me a list of 30. So it is very informational and giving you that info that you might need to practice. And it does give really great questions that you might see in an interview. So again, you can see down here, another example is write me a response to the interview question based on the following resume. So I can go copy the text in my resume, paste it into ChatGPT or any of the AI platforms, and it will actually use my resume to build a response to the interview question. So if you're struggling with what do I say here? How do I talk about this in a professional way? This type of platform or any of the AI platforms can really help you build that response professionally. And if you want me to do a demo or you're interested in learning more about this, schedule an appointment with me. I'm happy to show you how to use these tools. But I think when you know what to put into the system, you're going to get a really good response in the outcome. So go in and play around and see what you come up with. But I think it's a really great resource for you that's free and online right now. When we get to the types of questions you might be asked, I want you to become familiar with behavioral-based interviewing questions. These are those questions that start with, tell me about a time, or describe a situation, or share an experience when, right? We've all heard them, most likely. These are behavioral-based interview questions. They are trying to see how you would react or behave in this certain scenario. There's a very easy way to answer these questions correctly every single time, and that's using the STAR method. So STAR stands for situation, tasks, action steps, and results. So if you ever get stuck, just remember STAR method. And I'm going to break it down for you on the next page here. So the question that this is just an example, ask is, tell me about a time you had to complete a task within a tight deadline. Describe the situation and how you handled it. So if we break it down using the STAR method, the situation was that at a former employer of mine, I had lost a teammate. The tasks that I completed were that we took responsibility for the lost teammates project and that short deadline. And the action steps that I personally took were I created a team of people and delegated work based on their strengths. And the result was that we actually completed the project one day before the deadline, and we were able to present it to the company executives. So you can see how I broke down my example here. And then if I wanted to put it all together, this is the type of answer I would say. So I'm not going to read this out loud because it's a little bit lengthy, but you can see here how we broke it down into the STAR method, and then we formulated that into sentences for my response. So if you ever hear the tell me about a time or describe a situation or share an experience when, I want you to immediately think STAR method to help you get through this question. The important piece that they're looking for is the action steps and the result. What did you do and what happened? So again, if you ever get stuck, always remember, at least bare minimum, what did you do? What was the result? I do have tons of other resources for interviewing though. The top interview questions and how to answer them, right? These are probably your most common ones that might not be super specific to a particular field. I have a list of top behavioral interview questions, how to make a good impression. For those group and panel interviews where you're interviewing with lots of people, some tips for that. Sometimes if it's a smaller practice, they might not have the option for you to come in to interview. So they might say, let's meet at a mutual location. So how do you handle a situation like that where you're in public, right? Sometimes we might not know how to interact in that situation. So this is a really great resource for that. Open-ended interview questions as well can sometimes be tricky. So this resource does a really good job of summarizing how to answer those types of questions as well. This last one, if you review any of the resources, I want you to really look at this one. I will put this link in the chat. So this is all about illegal interview questions. And what I mean by that is interview questions that employers legally cannot ask you, or they should not be asking you. If you do have a situation where they are asking you this in an interview, how do you respond? That's what this article helps you with. So any type of personal identification information, right? Your political affiliations, your own gender, right? Anything related to that could be discriminatory, we don't want to be talking about in an interview. So how do we handle that? How do we maneuver that process? How do we kind of segue out of that conversation? That article does a really great job of showcasing how to do that properly and professionally. So we just finished up talking about before the interview. Now we're going to move into during the interview. Whether we are in person or we are virtual, we are going to try to make good eye contact, but we're not going to be creepy. I don't want you to be staring at them the entire time. Casual eye contact is the key here. So not all the time, not some of the time. We want to have somewhere in between. We also don't our enthusiasm, right? We're really excited to be interviewing for this job and we want to show them that. So I want you to go into this very positive attitude, smiling, right? It does make a huge difference at the end of the day. We're going to have good posture. We're not going to be slouching or fidgeting or moving around in our chair to be distracting, right? We're going to maintain good posture, shoulders back, hands in our lap, hands on our resume, something of the sort. Speaking of resumes, you should be bringing that with you. So I want you to use your props, use your resources. I want you to walk them through your resume, walk them through your portfolio, show them all the awesome things that you've been doing. If you're virtual, ask them if it's okay for you to share your screen. This does two things. One, it allows you to show those resources off, but also allows you to showcase your ability to use technology, right? Sharing your screen isn't that tough, but it is a resource or a tool that you might need to use in practice if you're maybe doing telehealth appointments, right? They need to know that you can use the technology. So you're kind of showcasing that skill as well. Next is we want to be prepared to ask questions to the interviewer. The interview is not just us answering questions. We also want to be asking questions as well. I want you to prepare at least 5 questions because some of them might be answered. So I do provide a resource for questions at the end of the interview. I will pop this into the chat as well. Interview. So at the very end, they usually ask you, do you have any questions for us? I want you to always say yes, and I want you to come prepared with questions. This is not a process of just you interviewing. You are also interviewing them to make sure that this is going to be a good fit for you. So ask the questions that you need to get the answers that you are looking for. Questions should be asking for their contact information. Now, again, if it's a smaller practice, you can probably find it on their website, but for a larger organization, it might be tougher to get their contact information or emails. So ask them at the end, say, I really appreciate our conversation today. Do you mind sharing your contact information with me in case I want to follow up or I have any other questions? That's a really professional way of saying, give me your contact information so I can send you a thank you note afterwards. Which gets us to after the interview. What do we need to do now? Hopefully we had a really successful interview. We were prepared, we were on time, we came with our resources, we followed all of the steps to answer the questions, and we had an awesome feel-good interview. We asked the questions at the end to get their contact information, so we're prepared and ready to go. Now they might give you some homework. They might say, it was really great interviewing with you. The next step is to upload documents or upload your licensure information, right? We want to make sure we complete that within a timely manner and send over anything that they need within 24 to 48 hours. When we do that, I also want you to send a thank you note. Now, this can be via email. You can also write a handwritten note if you want to and include any details from that conversation that you had, or maybe you were discussing something very specific and you want to bring it up in the thank you note. You can do that as well. You can also handwrite one. So I always say if it's somewhere local that you can hand deliver it, go for it. You can also just put it in the mail. Stamps are less than $1, so you can just write a thank you card, send it in the mail if it's local. If you don't hear back, so sometimes that happens, we get busy. If it's a smaller practice, usually they're pretty good about getting back to you, but if it's a larger organization, that hiring process can take some time. So if you haven't heard back within a week to 2 weeks, it is okay to follow up. So you can just follow up to your email chain, try to give them a call and see what's going on. So many things could be happening. There could be people leaving. There could be people that go on vacation. There could be a natural disaster, right? We have hurricanes going on right now in the Florida, in the South. So that's a perfect example of how that could be delayed. And so we want to be mindful of that. And this also is giving you another opportunity to kind of sell yourself, right? Let them know, hey, I'm still interested. Is there anything I can give you to help speed up this process a little bit? Just kind of checking in on my status. That is absolutely okay to do that. Now, if you don't hear back ever, or let's say you get that awful rejection email or it's saying, we decided to go a different way or choose a different applicant for this position, I don't want you to dwell on it. I don't want you to be upset because that door isn't technically closed. That doesn't mean we're never going to get this job. It just means that there might be some other things going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. So what I want you to do is when you get that rejection email, if it's not a no reply email, because sometimes that happens where it comes from a HR department where it says no reply, meaning if you responded, it wouldn't go through. Usually, that would be from a larger organization in most cases, but most of the time you're going to hear from a real person. So I want you to respond to that email and I want you to ask for feedback. I want you to say, thank you for the time that you spent interviewing me. I really enjoyed our conversations and was hopeful that I can contribute to the team. I understand maybe right now isn't the best time, but I would love to get some feedback from you on how I can improve for the future. And so that's absolutely okay to ask, because what it's showing them is that you're still really interested. You really wanted this to work out and you want to try to do better next time. And so that way, it's a mutual conversation. You're not taking the rejection heavily. You're really taking it as an opportunity to improve your skills for the future. You never know what's going on behind the scenes, right? Like I said, those couple other examples, maybe they had someone who they offered the position to, and then that person drops out, right? You're going to be the backup option for that role. So you want to always be the second option in this case. So like I said, that person could always decline the offer and then boom, you're next in line, you're ready to go. They're always going to go with you because you were kind. You took the initiative to actually follow up with that rejection and kind of handle it with grace. And so take any feedback that they give you. Anything is something. So even if it's just one candidate had better education than you or experience, right? Just say, thank you for the feedback. I really appreciate it. And then move on, right? You're still going to kind of leave that lasting impression with them. And so it's always good to kind of take the rejection with a grain of salt, right? Take it as an opportunity for you to do better in the future. So I know I talked about a lot today, and I want to share this interviewing guide with you. I will put this in the chat as well. This is also on the Career Resources website. You have access to this anytime. This goes over everything I talked about today, but also has some other good information in there for you. So you can scan that QR code. You can visit the website. I also put the link in the chat, whatever you prefer, but know that this interviewing guide exists. It is for you to work to support you with interviewing. So I have some final tips here for success. Number one is I want you to be proactive and prepare ahead. The more prepared we are, the more confident we feel, the more successful we are in this process. If you feel like you need some extra support, you want to practice with me, let's do it. Let's practice virtually. I can pull some questions for you. We can work on some sample answers. Use AI to also help you, right? It's there, it's free, go for it. There's also another platform called Udly where you get, I believe, 10 free practice interviews. You can also use a website called Google Warmup. And it is a free interviewing platform through Google. So if you type in Google Warmup on Google, it'll pop up. But you can practice for, I don't think there's a limit on the number of times that you can practice, but there's a limit on the number of questions you can practice at a time. So you can practice unlimited times, but you can only practice 5 questions at a time. And so it's pretty cool because it does give you immediate feedback as well. So if it's 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm not able to help you, but you have the interview next day, you can practice on Google Interview Warmup for free at 3 a.m. and it will give you feedback immediately. I also want you to remember that you are interviewing them too. This isn't just an interview about you. It's an interview about them. I want you to make sure that they're going to be a good fit for you in terms of employment, in terms of cultural fit, in terms of making sure that this is actually going to be something you're going to like. So make sure you ask the questions that will get you those answers. And then I want you to follow up. I want you to stay connected. I want you to remember that a rejection doesn't mean the door is closed. It just means maybe not right now is not the right time. There could be so many things going on, but they're going to keep you in mind for future opportunities. So as I said, I know this was a lot of information jam-packed into a half-hour time, but please know that I'm here for you as a resource. My job is to support you and make sure you feel confident with this process. I have lots of info on the Career Resources website, so I'm actually going to put some other resources in the chat here. First one is my email. I am here for you, happy to answer questions anytime. You can email me or you can set up an appointment via Calendly Monday through Friday. If those times aren't working for you, you're finding that my calendar is not matching up with your calendar, just email me. I'm very flexible, happy to meet with you whenever you are available as well. The link to the Career Resources website, lots of rich information on there for you, not just for interviewing, but for everything career related. So definitely check that out. And then the last one is that schedule an appointment button. I did put a feedback form in there. If you enjoyed today's presentation, you thought it was helpful, I would love to hear about it. If you didn't find it helpful, I would also love to hear that as well. It's completely anonymous. It'll only take you a couple seconds to complete, but the feedback is really appreciated so that I can make sure these presentations are helpful for future students and graduates. So that's it for today. I will hang out here for a couple minutes if anybody joining live has any questions, but otherwise, I hope you have a fantastic day and you feel more confident and comfortable in your interviewing processes. And as always, I'm here for you and I'll see you soon.